You're sitting there scrolling through another endless list of best laptop articles, wondering if you'll end up spending a lot of money on a machine that looks great on paper, but ends up being a disappointment in your day-to-day workflow. I get that feeling, especially when you need something that can handle heavy software, multiple monitors, and the occasional game night, yet you don't want to end up with a laptop that overheats on a Zoom call or dies halfway through a render. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Dell XPS 159520 sits in that sweet spot between a high-end workstation and a sleek, professional notebook. It's not marketed as a gaming laptop per se, but the inclusion of an RTX 3050 and a 12th Gen i7-12700H means it can comfortably sit in a creator's toolbox and still pull off a few titles at 1080p. The question is whether those specs translate into real-world value for you, or if you're better off looking elsewhere. First off, who actually benefits from this machine? If you're a graphic designer, video editor, or software developer who routinely runs Photoshop, Premiere, VS Code, and maybe a few Docker containers side by side, the 32 GB of DDR5 RAM is a lifesaver. It lets you keep a dozen tabs open, spin up a VM, and still have headroom for large media files. The 2 TB PCIe SSD means you won't be waiting for files to copy or applications to launch. I've seen users move 100 GB of raw footage in under a minute on similar configurations. For anyone who needs a reliable Windows 11 Pro environment for corporate or academic work, the built-in fingerprint sensor and TPM support give you that extra layer of security without having to buy an external dongle. Now, let's talk about the display. The 15.6-inch FHD Plus panel, 19201200, isn't a 4K OLED, but the anti-glare coating and 500 nits brightness make it usable on a sunny desk or in a dimly lit coffee shop. Color accuracy is decent out of the box, which is enough for most photo editing tasks, though you'll still want to calibrate if you're chasing broadcast-grade fidelity. Because it's a non-touch screen, you avoid the extra power draw that can shave a few % off battery life, a small, but real advantage when you're on the go. Speaking of battery, this is where the XPS 15 shows its trade-offs. The 86Wh cell paired with a high-performance CPU and a discrete GPU can only stretch to about 6 to 7 hours of mixed use before you need to plug back in. If you plan on using the laptop for long flights or all-day meetings without a charger, you'll notice the drain faster than with a typical Ultrabook. That's not a deal-breaker for most professionals who carry their charger anyway, but it's something to keep in mind if you're hunting for a work-anywhere machine. Thermals are another practical consideration. The i7-12700H is a beast, delivering 14 cores that can handle multi-threaded workloads like video encoding or 3D rendering without a hitch. However, the slim chassis means the cooling system has to work harder, and under sustained loads, think rendering a full 4K timeline or running a long benchmark, the CPU can throttle after about 1,520 minutes. In everyday scenarios, coding, web browsing, light photo editing, you won't notice it, but if you regularly push the laptop to its limits, you might want to invest in a cooling pad or keep an eye on fan curves. The RTX 3050 isn't a high-end gaming GPU, but it does enough for most modern titles at 1080p with medium settings. I've run games like Valorant and Elden Ring on it. The former runs flawlessly at 144 Hz, while the latter feels smooth at 60 Hz with some texture tweaks. If you're looking for a machine that can replace a desktop gaming rig, you'll be disappointed. But for developers who need CUDA cores for AI workloads or designers who occasionally want to unwind with a game, it's a pleasant surprise. Connectivity-wise, Dell gave the XPS 15 two Thunderbolt 4 ports that double as USB-C, DisplayPort, and power delivery. This makes docking a breeze. You can attach a 4K monitor, an external SSD, and charge the laptop all through a single cable. It also future-proofs the device for upcoming peripherals. There's a standard USB-A port, a full-size HDMI, and an SD card reader hidden on the side, which covers most of the everyday needs without requiring extra adapters. So, who should skip this laptop? If you're a hardcore gamer who wants to max out settings at 1440p or 4K, you'll quickly outgrow the RTX 3050 and look for a dedicated gaming chassis with better cooling and a high refresh display. If you travel light and need a sub-3-pound notebook that can survive a backpack's rough handling, the XPS 15's 4.5-pound weight and relatively thick profile might feel cumbersome. And if you're on a strict budget, the combination of a 12th Gen i7, 32GB DDR5, and 2TB SSD pushes the price well into the premium tier. There are cheaper alternatives that still cover most of the same use cases, albeit with slower storage or less IAM. On the other hand, the value